Kwame learned to drive on a dusty road outside his village, where his father taught him to listen to the engine like a heartbeat. When he moved to Accra, he brought that listening with him. But the city had its own rules. Horns were currency. A quick blast could part a crowd, claim a lane, or warn a distracted pedestrian. Kwame used his horn like everyone else, until one night, when the sound of it changed everything. It was raining in the way Accra rains, sudden and heavy, turning gutters into rivers and making the city glow with reflected lights. Kwame was late for a run. He had promised his landlord he would bring rent, and the meter was ticking. On a narrow street near the market, a woman stepped into the road carrying a basket of food wrapped in plantain leaves. She moved slowly, balancing the load, her headscarf tied tight against the rain. Kwame honked. It was a sharp, impatient sound meant to hurry her across. The woman froze, startled. In that instant, a truck, skidding on the wet road, swerved to avoid a pothole and struck her. The impact was sudden and final. Kwame slammed on the brakes and ran to her, but there was nothing to be done. The market mother, who had been saving for her children, was gone. For weeks after, Kwame could not sleep. He replayed the moment as if it were a film he could rewind and change. He visited the market and found the woman's stall empty, her neighbors folding her cloths into a small bundle. He learned her name was Amma. He learned she had 2 small children who asked for her at dawn and did not understand why she did not come. That night, Kwame dreamed of Amma. She stood at the edge of the lagoon, her basket empty, and spoke without moving her lips. Her voice was not angry. It was a quiet thing that filled the cab like rain. "Do not disturb the night," she said. "It is for those who sleep, those who mourn, and those who remember." When he woke, the words clung to him. He stopped using his horn after sunset. At first, it was a superstition, a small penance. He told no one. He learned to drive by listening to the scrape of tires, the shuffle of feet, the hush of a street where people were trying to sleep. He learned to slow down and to give way. Passengers noticed. Some laughed and called him soft. Others, exhausted from long shifts, thanked him with a tired smile and a folded note of money. Word spread. People began to call him Kwame the Silent. The nickname came with stories. A nurse who rode with him home after a night shift said she had cried in his back seat and felt lighter when she stepped out. A young couple who had argued on the way to a funeral found themselves holding hands by the lagoon. An old man who had not spoken to his son in years fell asleep and woke to find the 2 of them talking quietly. Small reconciliations, small mercies. None of them proved anything, but they made the city softer in the places where it had been sharp. Not everyone believed in the change. "You're a rival driver," mocked Kwame. "Horns are how we survive," he said, slapping his steering wheel. "You think silence will pay your rent." He kept honking, and one night, his impatience cost him a passenger who swore never to ride with him again. Rumors grew into myth. Mothers told children that if they heard a horn after dark, it meant trouble. Market women began to fold their wares earlier, and some drivers, curious or moved, tried to follow Kwame's example. Accidents did not stop entirely, but the city's nights grew a little less noisy. People began to notice the difference between day and night as if the city itself had learned to breathe. Years passed. Kwame kept driving, and the story of Amma became part of the city's memory. He never claimed credit for the small changes. He would only say, when asked, that he had learned to listen. He kept a small photograph of Amma tucked into the glove compartment, a faded image of a woman smiling with a child on her hip. He never told her children who he was. He left money at their door sometimes, anonymously, and watched from a distance as they grew. One evening, long after the accident, Kwame found himself at the bridge where the lagoon met the sea. The city lights were low constellation, and the water moved like a slow thought. A boy approached him, no more than 10, who had been watching the taxis all night. "Why don't you honk?" the boy asked, blunt and curious. Kwame looked at him and saw his own younger face. He thought of Amma, of the way a single sound had changed a life. He thought of the small reconciliations that had followed, of the nurse who had slept, of the couple who had held hands. He reached into his pocket and gave the boy a coin. "Because some sounds are for waking," he said, "and some sounds are for letting people sleep." The boy nodded as if he understood and ran off to buy a kara. Kwame drove on, the city folding around him like a familiar map. In time, the story of the silent taxi driver became a kind of blessing. People would say, when they saw a taxi glide by without a horn, that the driver must have learned to listen. Some drivers adopted the habit for a while and then returned to their horns. Others kept it. The city never became perfectly quiet, but the nights acquired a new courtesy, a small respect for the people who needed rest. Kwame grew old behind his wheel. He stopped driving one rainy morning when his hands could no longer hold the wheel steady. He sold the taxi to a young man who promised to try. On his last night, Kwame walked to the lagoon and watched the city lights tremble on the water. He thought of Amma and of the way a single life could change the sound of a whole place. When he died, the neighborhood gathered. Mama Sika brought akara, and the tailor closed his shop for a moment. People told stories about him, about the nurse, the couple, the old man. They spoke of small mercies and of a city that had learned to be gentler. At the funeral, the young man who had bought the taxi placed a single white flower on the dashboard and drove the cab once more through the streets, not honking, letting the city remember.